A lot of managers want it all. They want the money from the TV. They want the new players. They want the rest in between the games. But their bosses want the Far East and the American exposure to get the money. Mm-hmm. And they also have to satisfy the contracts they've already signed with those TV companies as well. Let me give you a scenario here. Because if I was BT... I'm offered the opportunity to bid for packages 2 years ago, and I commit a certain amount of money. I think it's over £200 million that they pay just for the 12:30 games.
It's 290, I think. 298.
It's 9.22 million per game. Oh. Now, they sell advertising and subscriptions on the basis that they have a live game at 12:30 on a Saturday. They build their schedule around it, and this is just BT, and they will get in advertising at that same time. If you tell BT, for example, that from now on, because of the pandemic, even though we want the same level of money from you, and BT have got their own challenges, they would have had less advertising revenue over the course of this period. They will have to lay off staff like a lot of other companies have as well. They will be making decisions about, it's more expensive to put on a game when you have to be socially distanced and you have to be COVID safe, etc., etc. So they're still spending their money and adapting to the way that they're working. But if you then turn round and say to BT, okay, but in that slot, you can't pick any of the Champions League teams. And the only teams that you can have are West Brom, Burnley, Sheffield United. You can't pick any of the Europa League teams because on Thursday nights, the turnaround is too tight, and we all understand that.
Thursday,
and it's been
Sunday.
sacrificed.
It's always Thursday.
So then you can't have Tottenham, Arsenal, Leicester, anyone that Tottenham, Arsenal and Leicester are playing, or the two teams on a Wednesday night. The number of fixtures that you could possibly end up with, bearing in mind they don't have first pick most weeks, by the way, so that goes to Sky. So Sky have already picked the plum tie, means that there's not much choice left for them by the time it gets to that anyway. So it's very, very difficult in terms of a business model to turn around and suggest that you cannot have Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United and Manchester City in any of those slots should they play on a Wednesday night. Now, some people might turn around and say, but obviously if they play on a Wednesday night, then that's when you say, we won't pick them, we'll wait till the following week. Well, that's okay if you're in a situation, and I think you look over the course of this season, I think it's only 3 or 4 times that they've been in that 12:30 slot, 3 times I think if you include the one that's coming up in December. But also, you also have to factor in the fact that in the Far East, the 12:30 kickoff is the premium slot because it's 8:30 and that's their peak time. Like at 5:30, it's the peak slot for the Americans. The Americans send an actual commentary team. Arlo White, Lee Dixon and Graham Lasso are employed by NBC in this country, and they go to every 5:30 game or a late game on a Sunday because at those times, those matches are fit into the NBC schedule. Now, if you take away one of those slots, all of a sudden NBC, who have spent quite a lot of money, by the way, they've the 6-year contract investing in Premier League football, trying to break the States. They put loads behind it. If you then take that slot away, for example, then you're not only not satisfying your Sky contract, but your NBC contract, and you're destabilising a broadcaster. By slagging off yesterday the BT pick, he's also turning a fan base, Jurgen Klopp, against BT. Therefore, devaluing, possibly, they might turn around and say, we're going to boycott BT. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you know what the culture's like at the moment. You have this cancel culture. It could be that Liverpool fans turn around and say, we're going to cancel our BT subscriptions. Now, if they were to do that, then they're devaluing their rights. They're devaluing the BT, but he is devaluing the asset that BT have spent so much money on. But at the same time, that is the money that feeds him. That's the money that pays for his contract. That's the money that pays for his players. We've all got to work together. I totally sympathise that there are more games in a truncated period. But we gave up second legs of the League Cup. We gave up replays in the FA Cup to try and clear some space for the schedule. So it's not like an effort hasn't been made. And the other thing I will say, and it's the last thing I'll say on it, no alternative has been presented to me or anybody else, to the broadcasters. What is the alternative? Because if you say to us, Sam, we're going to get rid of the 12:30, so what does talkSPORT do on a Saturday lunchtime? You know, that's another broadcast contract. What do? We build our whole schedule around game day, our big game day scenario.
And pay good money.
And we pay good money. We pay millions of pounds
Right.
for that. You know, we're not going to just turn around and say, because we're in the same boat as well. You know, we're all in the middle of a pandemic. We're all trying to deal with it. We've all got pressures. Everybody has to change. We can't just change because James Milner's picked up a hamstring injury.
But Jurgen Klopp, what you said there, what he's not getting is, whether he likes it or not, Sky, BT Sport, talkSPORT, and our competitor like 5 Live pay for all their rights, right? There, he's paymaster. The reason that
It's
the
not
players...
just their paymasters. They said
Right.
to us, here are our fixtures.
This is
what you can have. You can bid for them. You can pay good money for them, and we will put them on at those times.
So the Premier League have packages, don't they? They say, right,
Yeah.
this time, who's bidding for it? When it's been bid and you have the preferred bidders, then it goes back to the club's chief executives, the money men, and they say from the Premier League, this is what we've got as a package. Do you agree with that? All the money men go, that's Andy, you're not wrong, 5 billion quid it is, we'll have some of that. No one complained then. And if you're not telling me as well that his players can't play Wednesday and Saturday afternoon at 12:30, right? You can easily play Wednesday to 12:30.
What do you think?
It's a tough one. I think, you know, when you play in Champions League football and you're travelling, you know, for instance, if you end up in Russia or whatever it is, and you get about early hours in the morning.
But that's
and then
different.
you
I
travel
think
away,
that's different. I think that's different. If
tough.
you're travelling away in the Champions
tough.
League on a Wednesday night and you're asked to play 12:30, that's different.
That's
And I understand that.
Players would rather play than train. And if you're playing for Liverpool, if you're playing for Man United, you're playing for Arsenal, that's what comes with the territory. You're playing for a massive club.
Of course it does.
And the reason that they're being on at 12:30, because they're the champions, right? And they're successful. I think there's a bit of Jurgen Klopp as well, where he's not used to being the hunted. He's used to being the hunter. When he's at Mainz, he was underdogs. When he was at Borussia Dortmund, he's underdogs against Bayern Munich. Comes to Liverpool, they're not a force. They're a massive club, but not a force. Now they're the force. He seems to be just losing a little track at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Losing that everybody's against us. It's like he's got this persecution sort of complex. You go, no, you're the champions. That's why you're on at 12. Because if you keep moaning about injuries and your squad is a bit weakened, even the broadcast thinking there's every chance Liverpool could get beat by Brighton.
Yeah.
And that's a better spectacle for the product that goes all around the world because you want it to be competitive.
I don't think it's even about that. I think, again, it's pretty much... it's so important to put into context the fact that the Premier League relies on not only its broadcasters in this country, but in other countries as well. And the slots have been chosen because of where they fall in the clock in different parts of the world. So your 12:30 is 8 o'clock in the Far East, or your 12:30 is at a reasonable time in Australia, so where people can watch the game. Your 5:30, same again with your 5:30.
But the 12:30 is big here.
It's massive here. It's massive here. It's massive for us.
When
it's
we can get in the pubs, when you can get in the pubs, the 12:30 has become a big game, isn't it, for the hospitality industry?
And it's been going on for years, by the way, but it's not just new for this season. But I just think that you've got to understand that it's not just one broadcaster, it's one, and that's why you can't move it. Why it's so difficult to move it. Because if you keep trying, if you think about it for a second, how are you going to satisfy all of those different broadcasters around the world by saying that Liverpool can't play on a 12:30 on a Saturday? I'm sorry, but people aren't going to tune in for West Brom Burnley. And if you're a broadcaster that spent £9 million on one particular game, you don't want to show West Brom Burnley every week. You want the access to the champions, to Manchester United, to Chelsea, to Everton, to Leeds, to big teams with big support, because that's where you get your eyeballs, and their businesses too. So I understand that there are pressures on fitness. I understand that it's a difficult season. But what's the alternative? If you can give us an alternative, which everyone can work with, then I'm sure that people will go for it. But they won't, because they can't. And that's because of the fact you can't invent time, sadly. There's a certain number of games that have got to be in the calendar. We've trimmed it down, and let's be completely clear about it. You can't add an extra day into the week. This is from an anonymous texter who says, "You're talking rubbish again, Rushton." I think you've got me confused with somebody else. This is talkSPORT. It's a Sunday session.